Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Last Week Tonight, where we try to make sense of the political circus that is American politics. Tonight we're diving headfirst into the policy showdown of the century, Trump versus Biden, round 2. Now you might be thinking, wait, didn't we already do this whole song and dance back in 2020? And you'd be right, but much like a bad case of indigestion, this political rivalry just keeps coming back for more. Fast forward to 2025 and we find ourselves with President Trump at the helm, once again facing off against the looming legacy of his predecessor, President Biden. The political landscape is littered with the remnants of their respective policies, some more successful than others. Tonight we'll be dissecting the economic, foreign, and domestic policies of these two titans, examining their impacts, and trying to figure out just what the hell is going on. Buckle up, folks, because it's going to be a bumpy ride. Let's start with the economy, shall we? Because, let's face it, that's what everyone's always talking about. Under President Biden, the economy was humming along quite nicely. GDP growth was robust, unemployment was at record lows, and wages were actually increasing for once. Remember those halcyon days? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Biden poured money into infrastructure, semiconductors, and green energy, hoping to build a more sustainable and competitive economy for the future. And for a while it seemed like his plan was working. But then came the return of Trump, with his own unique brand of economic policy. Trump slapped tariffs on goods from all over the world, claiming it would bring back American jobs. Instead, it seems to have just brought back stagflation, that delightful combination of high inflation and stagnant economic growth that nobody enjoys. Labor productivity took a nosedive, and the Federal Reserve is basically playing economic whack-a-mole, trying to keep everything from imploding. So who's winning the economic battle? It's a bit early to say for sure, but right now it looks like Biden's legacy of economic growth is on life support, while Trump's economic policies are busy trying to figure out how to use a defibrillator. Moving on to foreign policy, where things are just as messy as ever. Biden spent his presidency trying to repair the damage done to America's global standing during Trump's first term. He rebuilt alliances, re-engaged with international institutions, and generally tried to make America look like a responsible world leader again. But Trump, ever the contrarian, has spent his second term trying to undo all of that. He's cozied up to dictators, picked fights with allies, and generally made America look like that one friend you can't take anywhere without them causing a scene. Trump's foreign policy has been widely criticized, even by members of his own party. But his supporters argue that he's simply putting America's interests first, even if it means ruffling a few feathers along the way. One thing's for sure, the world is a much more chaotic and unpredictable place with Trump back in the White House. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing depends entirely on your perspective. Section 4. Healthcare and infrastructure building for the future. On the domestic front, Biden and Trump have continued their ideological tug-of-war. Biden expanded healthcare coverage and poured money into infrastructure, hoping to create a more equitable and prosperous society. He made some progress, but his efforts were often stymied by a divided Congress and a deeply polarized electorate. Trump, on the other hand, has taken a more hands-off approach, preferring to let the private sector take the lead on issues like healthcare and infrastructure. He's also rolled back some of Biden's regulations, arguing that they were stifling economic growth. The result is a patchwork of policies that vary widely from state to state, creating a confusing and often inequitable system. Section 5. Social Security and immigration fault lines deepen. Nowhere are the divisions between Biden and Trump more apparent than on the issues of Social Security and immigration. Biden tried to shore up Social Security and create a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants, while Trump has sought to cut Social Security benefits and restrict immigration, both legal and illegal. These issues are deeply personal and emotionally charged, and they have only become more so in recent years. Trump's policies have been particularly controversial, with critics accusing him of cruelty and xenophobia, but his supporters argue that he is simply trying to protect American jobs and preserve American culture. The debate over these issues is likely to continue for many years to come, with no easy answers in sight. Section 6. Public opinion, a nation divided. So, what do the American people make of all this? Well, as you might expect, they're pretty divided. Polls show that Trump's approval rating is underwater, with a majority of Americans disapproving of his job performance. However, his base of support remains strong and he continues to be popular among Republicans. Biden, meanwhile, remains a respected figure, but he is no longer in office, and his ability to influence the national conversation is limited. The country is deeply polarized and there is little common ground between the two sides. This division is reflected in the media, which has become increasingly partisan, and in social media, which has become a breeding ground for misinformation and extremism. Section 7. The road ahead. Uncertainty prevails. As we look ahead, it's clear that the policy battles between Biden and Trump are far from over. Trump is in the White House, but his grip on power is tenuous. The Democrats control Congress, and they are determined to block his agenda at every turn. The 2026 midterm elections loom large, and the outcome of those elections will determine the balance of power for the remainder of Trump's term. In the meantime, the American people are left to navigate a political landscape that is more divided and dysfunctional than ever before. It's a time of great uncertainty, and it's anyone's guess what the future holds. And on that cheery note, we'll leave you to ponder the state of American democracy. Until next time, this has been Last Week Tonight, trying to make sense of the nonsensical.